What's up and welcome back to the channel. We're jumping into Crimson Desert patch 1.9. I guess at this point we might as well just get used to it. They're treating this game the same way they treat Black Desert Online, and we're getting weekly updates. A lot of features that they're basically smoothing out inside this update, and nothing more really than that. So let's jump right on and talk about it. The biggest one inside of here is obviously going to be controller remapping. Outside of that, we're getting like about 30 other pets that is going to be added to the game, and we got some new skills for Unka and Damien as well. They've done some things to like smooth out some of the fixes for like pawns, UI graphics and stuff like that overall, but I think the biggest one that we're going to be talking about is obviously going to be controller remapping. It's the major feature of this update. I think it's something that players have long been wanting. Even as a mouse and keyboard player myself, it's something I want because you get really immersed in this gameplay, and I find myself going to my SCUF Envision Pro controller a lot to kind of make maneuvers, but to be honest with you, the control mechanisms are just not there, and I'd like to be able to remap some of my control features there as well. So it's really action heavy game, so you have to have some of those remap features. I think this is like, if this had come out, these remapping features for both mouse and keyboard for the controller had been there when this game initially launched on arrival, I think the majority of the player base would be no doubt saying this is definitely a contender for game of the year. But it took us a while. We're about 2 months deep into the game, but nevertheless we're here. So don't forget to go take a look at these features. It's not the most flashiest change, and it's something that by all means and all definitions I think most players would have preferred been in this update, but it's finally here. Outside of that, we get about 30 new species of like the small animals that are running around that we can basically make pets. So they've started making the game feel somewhat like Pokemon, I guess, for us, because we're getting so many mounts, so many pets that we can collect now inside the game. So the fishing pond, everything in there feels like it's gotta catch them all for completionists like myself. It's just a lot that's there. So not every player is going to want to do those things with the collecting, but I find myself getting really immersed into the environment, picking up certain types of pets. Like I think everybody wanted a weevil at one point. Picking up those things just really, just adds a little bit to the game in there as well. So if you're interested in pets, just know that there's additional pets now that you can gain in the open world. You're gonna have to figure out what you exactly want to register them, but like picking them up, put them down, register them, that's part of the excitement of it. Also, Unka and Damien, they both have new skills. So the input command is going to work the way as they do for blinding flash for Cliff, but it's a heavy usage attack that they're going to have in there, so it's going to help out overall with the build consistency across the characters and none of them feeling like they're just pared down versions of Cliff at all. So they've done this where they've kind of brought Unka and Damien up in par with Cliff's overall skill, and that's a good thing. So they're like, in terms of his maneuverability, as well as some of his additional skills, and then they've brought over some of the skills that those characters have, whether it's the use of shotguns and things like that, and muskets. He now has some of those skills, so you get a little bit balanced approach across the board about whether or not you choose to play as Damien or Unka. This is one of those things where it could feel like it's a very simple option, but it's there nonetheless. They also fixed some issues as well for Cliff, like in his skills. For instance, like his blinding flash finisher, it could be used even when he had insufficient spirit, but they fixed that now. They also fixed the spirit being consumed when you use things like evasive kick, so they tightened up some of his stuff. They also made some balance adjustments for like Unka as well, so like his stagger meter increase, those been adjusted. Just a lot of little quality of life changes that they made there as well. One of the other big ones that they did in terms of changes was Magic Scythe. It couldn't be used when you had like a full inventory, so they fixed that. The mining knuckle drill, it wasn't being able to be used while you were clinging to walls. I use that one mostly because it's just easier in terms of collecting instead of like the pickaxe, even though I think people have tested that out and saw that you get better rewards if you use the pickaxe, but the mining knuckle drill was where I went with that anyway, so you take a look at that one. The other big change that they had added inside this patch was seeds. So instead of having to go into your inventory, select the seed, choose to use it, and then put it, they now have it so that way you can group up those items and put them in quick slots, so that way they can be accessed more easily when you're doing that. So it doesn't feel like it's such a overall heavy like option inside of there. So like some of the systems in the game, they definitely felt too layered. You know, 1, 2, 3 layers of clicks is a good thing, but when you're having to do 4 or 5 layers of clicks to do things, it's just kind of bad overall. But they're doing a lot of things to improve overall game. Dispatch UI elements have been fixed, so those are good things. Carrying out missions repeatedly has been fixed. Keyboard and mouse players got, you know, cursor disappearances and things like that have fixed. So they've got a lot of little cleanup issues inside of game overall that they fixed. So overall, really small patch. You know, as we just got patch 1.08, I'm not mad about having a smaller patch being done here that cleans up some items inside the game. We can overall look to see where they're going to go, probably with maybe, you know, the future updates in terms of quality of life, whether those fixing pawns and things like that or whatever. But this is a strong little patch, you know, kind of like in the same vein as what we saw Pearl Abyss do with like Black Desert Online, kind of weekly updates where, you know, we're getting overall balanced adjustments to characters, quality of life improvements to elements. These are the kind of changes that players will stick around for. We just have to see, like, when they make that announcement for additional DLC content. There's just no way in my mind that they haven't really looked at expanding the game world as is currently, or that they think that they didn't have something, you know, cooking prior to releasing this game. I just cannot, for the sake of me, believe that. So we'll have to see where they go. But overall, this should be a very enjoyable update for many of the players. Just, you know, especially with the controller base and all the console players who will be able to remap those things. I'm dying to see how that pairs out for players on the console, and what kind of positive attitudes we'll see in terms of reviews for the game with that, because that definitely ticks the game up in terms of like me suggesting that game for players a lot. You know, I was taking a full point off of my rating for the game based on just the controls, and you know, here we are. And the story mode, I'm roughly now at about 9.5 out of 10 for this game for where it's been. Story is still a little bit lacking. It's not as bad as I thought it was as you play through and figure out more what's going on, but let's just say it's like probably about a 9.5 for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. Until next time, guys, peace.